Hi, welcome to another edition of Inside the Wildcats. I'm your host, Troy Hutchison. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Arizona football, on field stuff, off field stuff. It's kind of a dead season, obviously, here in the month of July, but there's still a lot going on in terms of the recruiting ground and taking a look ahead of the next season and what Arizona has to do to prepare for 2025. First off, again, it's been a busy month of July for Arizona already here on July 5th. Tons of commitments. Arizona for the recruiting class as of right now has 17 commitments, landing Prince Williams on July 4th, the edge rusher out of Bishop Gorman, a 3/4-star recruit. Most recruiting services have him as a 3-star recruit, 6'3", 255 pounds. It's a big time get for Arizona. On3 has him as one of their elite prospects. Rivals has him as a 4-star recruit. I believe ESPN had him as a 4-star recruit. Just a big time addition for the Wildcats and a recruiting class that is shaping up pretty nicely. Right now it sits at 63rd nationally on3, but could it get into the 40s and maybe even into the 30s by the time National Signing Day rolls around? Yes. A lot can change between now and then in terms of recruiting rankings, additions that Arizona gets from this point on. A lot can happen. It could get worse. It could with players decommitting depending on how the season goes. But there's a lot of optimism right now. Arizona is landing big-time recruits. They're getting people and players to visit the campus and take tours and staff. There's a lot of buzz going on right now with the Arizona Wildcats. Like we said, 17 right now commitments for the class of 2026. In the month of July, in the month of June, 11 of those commitments came for Arizona after official visits. And this is all kind of like highlighted by 4-star recruit Oscar Rios, the quarterback of California. UCLA desperately wanted him. A lot of teams desperately wanted him across the country, including SEC houses and SEC Kentucky. It's a big time for Arizona to get. It's a big time for but there's going to be a lot of work to be done still in that recruiting class. There's opportunity for everyone to improve, so we'll see what they can do. But it's shaping up nicely, and the coaching staff right now is doing a good job, despite having it down 2025, of getting people interested in Tucson. And it's all about I'm talking about the recruiting cycle. It's all about the family atmosphere, family environment. That's all anybody wants to talk about. So credit to them, kudos to them for being able to do that and make it all about the team, the players, and the community here in Tucson. Now, as you look to on the field stuff for Arizona, training camp is coming up at the end of July as they prepare for the 2025 season. And last year, like we said, they struggled. They struggled in terms of tempo of the offense. It wasn't very good in terms of offensive ability. Outside of that first couple weeks in the game against New Mexico, Arizona's offense struggled. Dino Babers struggled as the offense coordinator, so he was replaced. Arizona's offense looked lost. It looked very slow. It wasn't that great of pace, so they brought in offense coordinator Seth Dagey, who is more of an up-tempo guy. He gets classified as an air raid guy because he came from that Mike Leach, that Sonny Dykes style system. But he's kind of balanced, similar to Rich Rodriguez in terms of you got to have a running game with it. Marshall was 20th in rushing the ball last season. So it's a very balanced attack. I think it's more of that Rich Rodriguez style in terms of up-tempo offense that can beat you in several different ways. But they want to get moving. They want to get down the field as quickly as possible and put pressure on the defense. So that has to improve for Arizona's pace of play, scoring in the red zone, finishing opportunities. And Arizona didn't have a lot of them last year. They had a hard time getting the ball past the 50-yard line. But when they did, they didn't even get into the end zone. A lot of field goals, a lot of turnovers, 15 touchdowns off of 28 trips. That's not good enough. That's not going to win you very many games. So you have to improve on that number. And, I always find it a little bit harder when you're in the red zone. If you're a spread team, if you're an air raid team, to really punch that ball in. But something tells me with the way that Seth Day is going about this offense, that it's going to be no problem with the running backs that they brought in, some tight ends they brought in, and some offensive skill players as well. So look for Arizona to improve there. And lastly, offensively, you got to keep Noah Fafita off the ground. I know Noah had a down year for 2025, and some of that was him. He was holding the ball too long. He was looking downfield too long. He was missing wide open players downfield, whether it be tight ends or receivers, that led to sacks and issues for the offense. But it wasn't all his fault. A vast majority of that was poor offensive line play and horrible coaching, to be flat honest, with Dino Babers. It was one of the worst offensive schemes Arizona's had dating back to the Kevin Sumlin era. It was just not very good. It wasn't very well organized. It was one-dimensional, and it led to issues. So, you look at his stats, a high interception rate. He still finished with 17 touchdowns, more touchdowns than picks, but it's not the Noah Fafita that fans are used to seeing. And he got sacked 28 times. In comparison, he only got sacked 19 times a year prior with a solid offensive line. So you got to be able to keep him upright, and you want to get the ball out of his hands quickly. I think when Noah is excelling, it's when he's able to get that ball out of his hands as quickly as possible and get it in the hands of playmakers on the move. He has a nice deep ball, but it's not an accurate deep ball. So being able to get the ball out of his hands will help him, but he does have the ability to go downfield. I'm not saying take away the lawn bomb completely. I'm just saying you have to make sure he's making the right reads and giving them options. I don't think there was enough options in the previous offense that met his strengths and capability. So hopefully this offense settles in for Noah and gives him more of that look that he needs. I think it will, and I think Arizona's going to pay off big time for that. And Noah's the type of guy that works hard and really grinds it out during the offseason and is a leader on the team. Last year, he was more of a leader in terms of do what I am doing. It wasn't about being a vocal leader. It was about going out there and doing it and getting the guys rallied around that. This whole entire offseason, the coaching staff all the way up to Brett Brennan has been talking about developing Noah as a vocal leader, that he needs to be more vocal out there on the field. And we saw during spring practice, he wasn't necessarily getting into guys, but he was making sure that guys were lined up in the right place, getting them pumped up, getting them motivated, and getting the offense organized, but using more of his vocal skills to do so instead of just showing them how to do it, verbally saying this is where you need to be and being that leader that is going to say something in the locker room. And I think that's one thing that they were missing on the offensive side of the ball last year, is that guy to step up and say, hey guys, something's not going right. We need to get our, stuff together. And now I think you're going to see that with Noah Fafita. I don't think he's timid. I don't think he was timid last year or worried about stepping on people's toes, but it's a process of leadership. It's a growing process. It's a developmental process. Some people don't mind being vocal. Some people have to be brought out of the shell. And I think that was that situation with Noah last year, especially in game situations, being brought out of that shell and not being worried about being that vocal leader. You just got to do it and take the bull by the horns. And we've seen that in training, in spring practice. I think we'll see that in training camp, and I think we'll see that on the field for 2025. If they do all that, I think Arizona will have a successful season, and that's just on the offensive side of the ball. And when I say successful season, I think anywhere from 5 to 7 wins is an improvement for Arizona, obviously compared to the 4 wins the previous year. But you want to see consistency on offense. You want to see consistency on defense. You don't want to see blowout games like you did last season, or streaks where you're losing 7 out of your 8 games or something like that. I think that was the number. It's an insane total. You can't have long losing streaks like that. You have to be in games. So I think the biggest thing for this upcoming season is being competitive, being able to put a good product out there on the field, have it be organized. I think it wasn't very organized last season offensively in terms of the coaching staff. You've made some correct changes, and I think it's going to be a little bit more organized this year. But I look for Arizona to improve. I think they're going to be around a 6-7 win team, make a bowl game, make a little bit of noise, maybe even surprise some people along the way. But for all that to happen, Arizona has to fix keeping Noah protected. So that's the offensive line. the system being more up-tempo and stop getting in ruts and just waiting for something to happen. And the red zone situation, they have to improve in the red zone or else you're not going to improve as a football team. And lastly is the weapons around Nova Fida. Outside of Tetero McMillan, there were no weapons out there. And a lot of teams could just hone in on Teteroa and force Noah to make bad decisions or hold on to the ball too long. So I think the weapons that they brought in via the transfer portal, the guys that they have coming in the recruiting class, I think Arizona's going to have enough of those weapons, not only at the wide receiver position, but in the backfield as well. Well, that does it for us today, and we'll see you tomorrow.